All right, let's dive in. We're tackling vocabulary today. Um, Not just like a random list of words, though.
Right.
We're going deeper.
Exactly. We're looking at how to really master English vocabulary for, well, better fluency,
Yeah.
right?
And we're using a transcript
Hmm.
from Learning English Hub to guide us.
It's a great episode, actually. And right away, they make this really interesting point. They compare vocabulary to the foundation of a house.
Oh, okay, I like that.
Yeah, without a solid vocabulary, the rest of your language skills just, they can't really stand up. You know what I mean?
Okay, so a shaky foundation.
Yeah, like what does that even look like in language
Yeah,
learning?
what does that mean?
Well, think about it. If you're always struggling to find the right word, you can't express yourself very clearly, you
Yeah.
know, or understand those more complex ideas. Even just following a conversation smoothly can be a challenge.
So it's like it really affects every single part of how you communicate.
It does. It really does. A limited vocabulary, it holds you back from truly engaging with the language.
Huh.
It's like trying to paint a masterpiece, but you only have a few basic colors.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So how does it suggest that we start? Like, how do we start building this foundation?
Well, they don't jump right into like specific words or anything. They go deeper,
Okay.
into the how, like how we learn.
Uh-huh.
And they point out how our brains, they naturally organize information into these categories.
Oh, okay.
Like, have you ever noticed it's way easier to remember your groceries if you group them by like what aisle they're in at the store?
Yeah. I actually do that all the time.
Right.
I never thought about it like that, though, for language.
See, that's exactly it. When you learn vocabulary in these themed categories, you're tacking into these existing mental frameworks. It makes
So,
it easier to store and retrieve all that information.
so, like, practically speaking, how would we do that?
Okay, let's say you are super interested in travel, right?
Okay.
Instead of memorizing just random travel words, you'd focus on subcategories. Oh, okay.
Like transportation, accommodation, even like food or specific activities.
Okay.
Right.
I could see how that would make it stick more, like creating a mental map.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And as you expand your vocabulary within each category, you build these stronger connections between the words themselves,
Oh, okay.
making them easier to recall and then actually use them, in context.
In real life.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And the episode, it goes on to explain that it's not just about memorization either. Learning by category, it helps you understand the nuances of the word meanings.
Oh, okay. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. Like, think about feelings as a category. Like
Okay.
when you learn words like happy, sad, uh, angry, and excited all together, well, you start to see how they relate to each other.
Okay. Yeah.
How some are like more intense than others, or how they might even like overlap a bit,
Yeah, that's true. You wouldn't really get that if you were just learning them, one by one. Exactly. It's like the difference between just seeing individual brushstrokes versus like appreciating the entire painting.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about categories. The Learning English Hub episode, it also mentions learning phrases, right?
Yes. This is where things get really practical, I think. They emphasize that fluency isn't just about knowing those single words, it's about using them together
Yeah.
in those natural idiomatic expressions.
Right. They gave some good examples too, like how are you? Or nice to meet you. Those are phrases I use all the time, but I never really thought about them as like essential.
But they are right. It's like these phrases, they're the building blocks of, well, any conversation, really.
Right.
They help you navigate social interactions smoothly.
Right, right. So, okay, but what about those times when you need to go beyond just the basic greetings? Like, does the episode give us anything for, expanding your phrase repertoire?
They do. They suggest focusing on those phrases that are relevant to you, your needs, your interests. Like, let's say you're learning English specifically for travel.
Okay.
Well, you might want to learn phrases for, like, booking flights or asking directions, maybe ordering food, stuff like that.
That makes sense. Tailor it to your own goals.
Exactly. It's about making sure that the vocabulary you learn is actually useful
Yeah, that you'll use it.
and applicable to your life, yeah.
Okay, so categories, phrases, but learning new vocabulary, it can be kind of a drag sometimes. Like,
Ah.
let's be honest. Does it give any tips for making it more fun?
They do. They actually dedicate a good chunk of the episode to fun learning techniques.
Oh, good. I was hoping they would get into that. Like, what kind of techniques are we talking about?
Well, they mentioned flashcards, playing Playing word games.
right?
Even just like labeling objects around your house with their English
Oh,
names.
I like that.
Right.
Especially the labeling, I think,
Yeah.
because then you're passively absorbing the words without even really, studying.
Exactly. It's about creating that immersive environment
Yeah.
where you're constantly encountering the language, but in a natural way.
Yeah. And I think the episode also mentions using visual aids.
They do. They talk about associating words with images,
Yep.
whether it's, flashcards, picture dictionaries, or even just like visualizing the word in your head.
I think I've heard that before, that visual aids help you remember things better. Something about how our brains process that visual information, right?
That's right. And the Learning English Hub episode, they even encourage you to get creative with it.
Yeah.
Like, you could draw pictures to represent words,
Okay.
or create like mind maps,
Oh, cool.
connecting those related words, visually.
Okay, yeah, that's neat. I think I'm starting to see this whole vocabulary learning thing in a totally different way now.
Good. That's what we want. And remember, the key is to find the techniques that work best for you.
Yeah.
And, make the learning enjoyable.
Okay. So, lots of good strategies so far. Is there anything else from this episode that you think our listeners should know about?
Well, they also touch on the importance of spaced repetition.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of that.
Yeah.
That's the idea of reviewing material at like different intervals, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it uses the way our brains naturally forget information.
Okay.
If you time your review sessions strategically, well, you can actually make your memory stronger.
Okay.
Make sure that vocabulary sticks.
Doesn't that take a lot of planning, though?
It can, but there are a lot of apps and tools now that help you automate that whole process. They
Sure.
can like remind you when it's time to review certain words and track your progress and stuff.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So there's really no excuse for not staying on top of it.
Right. It all comes down to finding what works and making it part of your routine.
Okay. So all these amazing techniques, tools, anything else this episode suggests to, really maximize those vocabulary efforts.
Well, they actually end on a really important point, the power of real-world application.
Oh, yeah. Like it's not enough to just learn the words, right? You have to use them.
Exactly. They emphasize that the best way to really make that vocabulary stick is to actively use it in your daily life,
Okay.
whether that's through conversations, writing, reading, or even like just thinking in English.
That makes sense. But how do you create those opportunities if you don't live in, an English-speaking environment?
That's a really good question, and the episode gives some practical advice for that.
Okay.
They suggest things like joining online language exchange groups,
Yeah.
finding an English-speaking conversation partner,
Yeah. Okay.
even watching movies and TV shows in English.
Yeah. That's
You can even just narrate your day-to-day activities in your head in English.
Yeah. Just kind of immerse yourself.
Exactly. And they also say, don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Making mistakes is actually a really important part of learning, right? That's how you figure out what you need to work on and how to get better.
Yeah. It's a sign that you're actually pushing yourself and, growing.
Totally. And the more you think of those mistakes as like learning opportunities, the more confident you'll become in your ability to use the language.
Okay. So we've covered a lot. We talked about learning by category, mastering those phrases, fun learning techniques, spaced repetition, and applying that vocabulary in the real world. This Learning English Hub episode, it really gave us a whole toolkit.
It did. And I think the big takeaway is that building vocabulary, it's a process. It's not about cramming a ton of words into your head overnight. It's about consistent effort
Yeah.
and finding strategies that make it both effective and enjoyable.
So after all that, this whole deep dive into this Learning English Hub episode, what would you say, what's the most valuable thing our listeners should take away?
I think for me, it's that emphasis on, making learning vocabulary, making it active, engaging.
Right. Not just staring at lists of words.
Yeah, exactly. You have to actually use them, connect them to your own life and find ways to make them stick.
I agree. I think that's what makes the episode so helpful. It doesn't just tell you what to do. It gives you the actual tools to do it.
Yeah. It's inspiring, too. It reminds you that learning a language, it's a journey. It's not just like you reach the end and you're done.
Right. It's ongoing.
There's always more, more to learn, more to discover, more ways to express yourself.
So if we could leave our listener with just one final question to think about, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a good one. Okay. If you could only learn 10 new words today, just 10, what would they be and why those words?
I like that. It makes you really think about